Wanted to remind folks, I've referenced some warmer weather coming. Not, summer-like, but definitely we're making some improvement over the course of the next week to 10 days when it comes to our temperatures. But when we get into those hotter days, that means that all of those windows you may have in your home or your office, and of course you know how your automobile is on a hot day, that convection that builds up, that heat that builds up once the sun starts pounding against those windows, you can reduce that by getting window tints and reduce it by nearly 3/4. So we've been recommending that you give a telephone call and set up a free estimate with the folks at Tint Lady. In fact, you can call 736-8469 or go online. That's tintladyidaho.com. Now, this locally owned and operated business has been in the Twin Falls area now for almost a quarter century. They're located at 1887 Highland Avenue East, open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., Saturday by appointment only, closed Sundays. And remember, don't squint, get tint. You want to talk about how much we're dumbing down students? This Common Core business. There was a woman from Ohio who decided to go to her local library so she could try to figure out what it is her kids were doing at school with Common Core math. Her name is Melissa, and I believe the last name is pronounced Starzella. She's from Ohio, and she's explaining in a video that has gone viral. You'll just hear her talking here. Obviously, I can't show it to you. I can hold it up to the microphone. That won't do much good. But she's explaining the difference between the math she grew up with and what her children are now being taught.
We're going to solve 43 minus 13. Now, we would normally solve it. 3 minus 3 gives you 0. 4 minus 1 gives you 3. We've got 30. Now, we're going to solve it the other way, the new math way. So we have 43 minus 13. You have to write it horizontally for this way, I was told today. Now, we're going to start with this 13. And we're going to try to get this 13 to the next 5. So 5, 10, 15. So 13 plus 2 gives us 15. Now take that 15 plus 5 gives us 20. Okay? Now we're going to take that 20 and get it to the nearest 10, which takes us to 30. Now we're going to take that 30, get it to the next nearest 10, which gives us 40. And we want to get up here to that 43. So we're going to take that 40, add 3, and it's going to give us 43. Now, to solve it, you add up this middle column right here. So 2 plus 5, 7, plus 20, 27, 28, 29, 30. That's how you get it, the 30.
There you go. All of those individual steps along the way versus what we used to do when we used to actually educate young people. 9:37, Bill Colley with you on Top Story this morning on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. You see more and more of these videos. It's not just the fellow from O'Reilly's program, but a number of these people who go out on the street and they go to college campuses. They go to Ivy League college campuses. And these students are running nothing but test patterns between their ears. We have a caller with us. You're up next. You're on the air on Top Story.
Good morning, Bill. Bill, American Thinker, even on weekends, WorldNet Daily, and Judicial Watch, they are great websites. Have you ever had anybody from Judicial Watch or any of these websites on your radio show?
No, I try to do it myself without having somebody else host it. It's kind of how that works. But thank you for offering to be the producer. We have one more caller before the break, I believe. I'm looking at the clock here. Could be 2, but we'll try to squeeze at least one more in. You're up next. You're on the air on KLIX.
Hey, good morning, Bill. How are you?
I'm wonderful.
Excellent. Hey, first time calling into your show. I used to call in quite a bit when Kelley was there, but I just wanted to let you know I really appreciate your in-depth perspective on many different issues that affect us, both here in the Magic Valley and then obviously nationwide. But, you know, what you just played there in that video, that is just complete and utter confusion. You know, I'm pretty good at math, and I mean, that was absolutely ridiculous. And I think it also speaks more to, you know, how the powers that be, the media, whatever, you know, want to keep us confused. You know, that they always have to have 3 different crises, and they want to keep our heads spinning so that we can't pay attention and focus on, you know, what really matters.
If you think about that for a moment, Oftentimes, when a big story breaks, a week later you hear that several bills were passed or signed into law that we didn't even know were on the agenda, and then you wonder how did that happen? Well, because media was distracted by the big house fire.
Or the latest celebrity breakup, or boob job or whatever. But going back to the last caller a minute, and that's why I wanted to call in. You said the education system is failing us. I mean, but what I would like to say is that for those that want to see this agenda come forth, the indoctrination system is working quite well. And I mean, this goes way back into the 1800s with the foundations, Rockefeller Foundation, and all the rest of them, founding Harvard, or I should say Harvard, and then spreading out their indoctrination to the entire education complex.
Well, I thank you for the call. I've got to get to a hard break, but I'll add to that. Ever since the 1920s, when the Frankfurt School arrived here from Germany, they've managed to get themselves into these major foundations and into the entertainment business and into academia, and just have slowly whittled away at what we happened to once be. This is why we're going to have women go into combat and get killed. 940, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX. Just saw a bulletin. The president has introduced his fiscal year budget. $4.1 trillion, that's with a T, $4.1 trillion, highest ever in American history. Now, the government will bring in a little more than half of that by taking money away from you. Then the difference will be made up by either borrowing it from the Chinese or some Islamic republic or just printing more and devaluing the currency. 944, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. There are a lot of ways to collapse a culture and a country. That's just one of them. I do want to remind you that we have got a great friend of this program who's been with us now for several months. High Desert Meat Processing here in Twin Falls processes one animal at a time. What you bring in is exactly what you'll get back. That is key when we tell you about this business. Darren Van Horn has been in the meat business for nearly 35 years. He's the owner. You can give High Desert Meat Processing a check on Facebook, if you will, and you'll discover a great many reviews of customers, and they're very positive. Give High Desert Meat Processing a call for your wild game as well as domestic processing needs, 734-9949. High Desert Meat does in-house smoking, and nothing is shipped out. Specialty meats, Polish dogs, hot dogs, kielbasa, breakfast sausage, pepperoni, salami, summer sausage, jerky as well. USDA approved. Darren works closely with local beef growers and their programs to ensure quality meat. 734-9949. I saw this today at National Review. We closed the show yesterday on this subject. You can destroy the country, of course, economically by building up debts we can never pay back. You can also destroy family structures. Only a barbaric nation drafts its mothers and daughters into combat. Editorial today from National Review. Such a policy inverts natural law and the rules that have grounded our civilization for thousands of years. Men should protect women. They should not shelter behind their mothers and daughters. The writers go on to say ground combat is barbaric. Even today, men grapple with men, killing each other with anything they can find. Returning veterans describe countless incidents of hand-to-hand combat with jihadists. In his book about the Battle of Gajagal, I guess that's how you pronounce that, Into the Fire, Medal of Honor recipient Dakota Meyer describes just such an encounter with a Taliban fighter. Taliban tried to capture Meyer, and they ended up wrestling in the dirt. Meyer describes what happened next. I pawed at the ground with my right hand and found a rock the size of a baseball. I clutched it and swung it blindly at his face. The blow stunned him. Before he could recover, I pushed off his chest, lifted the rock high in my right fist, and smashed it down like a hammer, breaking his front teeth. He looked me in the eyes, the fight knocked out of him, his head not moving. We both knew it was over. I drew back my arm and drove the stone down, crushing his left cheekbone. He went limp. I pushed up on my knees and hit him with more force. The blow caved in the left side of his forehead. I smashed his face again and again, driven by pure primal rage. That is war. It is not a video game. It is not a movie where young Hollywood starlets karate kick their way through masses of inept thugs and goons. When we order women into ground combat, we are ordering them into situations where men larger and stronger than they will show no mercy, crushing the life out of them like Meyer crushed that Taliban. So if you send off, women to combat and they all get killed, large numbers of them get killed, they will not be around to reproduce. Of course, that if you're one of these people who wants to reduce the surplus population around the world and feel that's another way to destroy the United States, and of course, you'll have to bring in people from other countries as replacement population. Oh, we're doing that already, aren't we? You could also encourage women to abort their babies because if they don't, they'll get the Zika virus and their babies will have little heads, such as the one doctor in Spain who's already recommending that women have no children until 2018. And if women end up pregnant between now and then, that they, kill the baby in the womb. So we can either kill mom off or your sisters off in combat, or we can have them kill their children because of the threat of disease, which may or not be much of a threat at all. Or we can feed young Americans pornography so that they don't actually have any interest in the opposite sex. They just sit around and pleasure themselves in front of computer screens, and we'll reduce the surplus population in that sense. Or we can confuse them about whether they are girls or boys. It's being done across the Western world. 9:48, Bill Colley with you this morning on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. It's 28. Wesley Pruden, editor emeritus of the Washington Times. Let no child be left unconfused. He's writing today about a school in England, in Brighton, which is a big resort area in England. For the English, going to the beach when it's rainy and 50 degrees is a real special treat. He says the kids at Blatchington Mill School were assigned as part of their homework to choose from a list of 23 terms to describe their gender. 23 terms. Now, folks, I've said it before. If you don't think you know what you are, you take off your clothes and you stand in front of the bathroom mirror, and you will quickly get an indication of exactly what you are. You are either a boy or a girl. The writer goes on to say, if you're a 10 o'clock scholar at Blatchington Mill School, you can choose to be a boy or a girl if you insist, and even better to be a gender queer, a gender nonconformist, a tomboy, a trans boy, a demi-boy, a demi-girl, or even something called gender fluid. Oh, and 14 other things. He goes on to write this: the educationists in Britain can't believe their good fortune in having so many guinea pigs at hand. What most of the kids probably would like to change is to eliminate the nosy Parkers in their lives. They have yet to learn a lot of useful things, even something as fundamental as how to write a coherent sentence, and interference from survey takers is of no help. The survey takers concede that the children's answers, quote, may be used in government reports, presentations, and publications, unquote. So they're going in and they're telling the little kids, you can be one of 23 things. And oh, by the way, the government's going to keep a record on this. We can destroy your actual real gender identity. It's being done not only in the United States, it's being done all over the Western world. And you wonder why these Muslim immigrants coming into Europe think that the people there are weak and stupid and will easily be conquered? Well, it's because it's true when you hear about these things. So it's bad enough that it's happening there, but it's happening here. It's happening throughout our academic institutions, the higher learning in college. They're doing it. They're dumbing people down with their safe spaces and all of their other ridiculous notions. But we're doing it to our young children as well, long before they ever even think about going to a college, if they even ever go to a college. So they're trying to take your children away right now in that sense. How about this? You know, we want to make sure everyone knows what their identity is, even if it isn't gender identity. Daily Caller. There's a new app that uses affirmative fractions to make white men pay more on restaurant bills. Did you hear this one? I kid you not. It's true. Instead of splitting a dinner bill equally, Equipay uses Bureau of Labor Statistics data regarding the average income of various racial and gender groups and splits the bill based on income levels. On a sample $350 bill for 5 people, they did this in San Francisco. It's expensive to eat there. The app forced the most privileged person, apparently an Asian male, to pay $89, while a less privileged black woman was assigned a bill of just $51. Maybe she eats less. Although most of the guys I know of Asian ancestry, they just kind of pick at their food. Not only does the app allow for bill splitting, but it also promises to rate the, quote, diversity level, unquote, of a user's friend group. A low amount of diversity may result in an Oscars or San Francisco startup level of diversity. For instance, while assembling a more diverse cohort of friends will result and the college brochure rating. So in other words, if you go out and you say, well, I'd like to take a group of friends to dinner with me tonight, and I was thinking we'd all go Dutch, but first I want to ensure that I have a couple of people over there who are of East Asian ancestry, and then a couple from Southern Asian, and then I need to have somebody who, of course, can go along with us to perhaps better represent the population, who might be of African ancestry, and I'll need a couple Latinos too, and anybody who's left-handed is welcome to come along as well. 9:53, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. And yet, we continue to allow this to happen. We continue to allow these people to make these outlandish decisions and changes, and they tell us this is the way you have to live, this is the way you have to be, and then they tell you it's right. And then they turn around and tell you, well, if you go to church and you believe in old traditional families and the like, then you're the one somehow who is wrong. Here we go. College cancels classes to cater to students who demand a safe space. The Palladium item reports that Earlham College canceled classes in order to discuss diversity demands made by students. According to the newspaper, students marched on campus Monday and gave a list of demands to the college president. Media Relations Director Brian Zimmerman refused to tell the newspaper the list of student requirements. Instead, the paper obtained the demands from an email that was allegedly sent to students, faculty, and staff. One of the demands made by the students is to create a required racial diversity training course that is taught by a black professor who was chosen by black students. And so I guess they will not be allowed to vote for anybody who might be a shade or lighter in color. That'll be the next step. Are you black enough? Well, I'll tell you what. We've got a little color system here. We'll have to stand you next to it. No. You apparently are not quite dark enough. So we have to choose someone else. Every day I just sit here and when I'm preparing this show in the morning, it is so sad I ended up laughing at a lot of these things. D.C. City Council measure could pay people to not commit crime. This is from a Media Research Center. The District of Columbia City Council has passed a measure that would pay people $9,000 a year to not commit crimes. What a great second. I've been thinking about robbing the bank, but if you actually give me 3 or 4 times what I could get, tell you what, I'll stay home and just eat some Doritos and drink a 40-ouncer. The mafia, the writer says, has a word for this. It's called extortion, except in this case, the mafia are the potential criminals, and the neighborhood business owners are the D.C. government. Under the measure, which still has to be approved by the mayor, city officials would choose 200 people a year that they consider to be at high risk for committing or becoming a victim of crime. So you'll even be paid, I guess, if you could be a potential victim. The chosen ones will then be required to attend behavioral therapy and or other programs. Once these possible criminals, successfully complete the therapy and other programs, they will receive the check. Gosh, I like the thought of that. Yeah, I've been thinking about speeding on the way home today, but I won't do it if you give me a couple $100 and a six-pack. We've got another caller with us, 9:55. You're up next with Bill Colley on Top Story.
Listen, all the time you keep talking about me and I'm this and I'm that. Dude, you don't even know me. If the NY State didn't show you the word, it's called defamation. Keep it up.
I'm not quite sure I follow that. Like I say, I don't speak gibberish, and I don't understand it when I hear it. 9:56:29, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310. The guy calls the show. No one calls him. And he calls the show and complains that we're not being nice to him. If you're at the zoo and you see the lion's den and you decide to hop into it, and the lion ends up taking one of your legs off, then you say, that mean lion, logic would tell you if you hadn't jumped into the lion's den in the first place, well, logic would also tell you you're a dumbass. But there you go. Telephone number to reach our program, 736-0300, 736-0300, or you can email me. The guy calls up out of nowhere and says, I don't want you calling me names or insulting my intelligence, and don't ever do it again. And I'm going to call you back tomorrow. And you know what? There's a simple way to get around that. Don't call. Speaking of test patterns going on between the ears, Again, we are surrounded by lunatics, whether they be in academia or some of them even get one telephone call a day. You still keep hearing from them. I do want to point out that tomorrow, hopefully will sane things up a little bit. Governor Butch Otter's scheduled to be joining us for a few minutes on the program, talking about just some of the education initiatives. Now, don't go out there and start snoozing on those words. I know it's like saying state auditor or state controller. It's like, but no, we're going to talk about education, and maybe we can actually start to turn this educational system around so we're not out there telling people, 28 steps to get to, 40 minus 13 or whatever the fraction happened to be in that audio we were listening to earlier about the absolute banality of this Common Core instruction. That's coming up tomorrow on the program, as well as, of course, a medical expert from Tripp Family Medicine right here in Twin Falls. It's 9:58, 30. Bill Colley with you. God willing, if the creek don't rise, I'm back here tomorrow. And we get to take more of those calls like the one we just heard from. Yeah, it makes my day, too. Rush Limbaugh following the news at 10 o'clock from Fox. Sean Hannity following news at 1 o'clock from Fox. Glenn Beck following the news at 4 o'clock from Fox this afternoon. And Dave Ramsey, 7 o'clock tonight, right here on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com.